Dear Evan Hansen is a show currently playing on Broadway. It is the story of a young man, Evan, who is living with social anxiety disorder. As you might imagine, it is incredibly challenging for this teenager at a time in his life when all things revolve around the social. If it is not about his social life, it is about social media, both of which are portrayed in this show. Early on in the show, Evan offers us a sense of how his condition impacts the ways in which he engages with his friends and the world more broadly, in a song entitled "Waving Through a Window." It begins with Evan describing how he has learned to avoid difficult interactions or even the potential for them. I've learned to slam on the brake before I even turn the key, before I make the mistake, before I lead with the worst of me. Give them no reason to stare, no slipping up if you slip away, 'cause I got nothing to share. No, I got nothing to say. Step out of the sun if you keep getting burned. Step out of the sun because you've learned. This approach, while keeping him safe from uncomfortable situations, has also resulted in his being no more than an observer in his own life, as people pass by and he chooses not to take the risk and engage. The song goes on to describe what it is like for Evan. On the outside, always looking in, will I ever be more than I've always been? 'Cause I'm tapping on the glass, waving through a window. I try to speak, but nobody can hear, so I wait around for an answer to appear while I'm watching people pass, waving through a window. Can anybody see? Is anybody waving back at me? Fear and anxiety have an immense impact on our lives. For some, like Evan, it is a condition that is simply a part of who they are. For others, it's a condition that we take on for some reason, perhaps an experience, a childhood trauma, perhaps some kind of learning, like someone telling us to fear those who are different. Or maybe it's a result of a lifetime of conditioning where we come to believe that safety is always better than risk. In any case, such fears, such anxiety can hold us back from experiencing what life has to offer. They can paralyze us into inaction. And the consequences of our non-action, well, it may not be too bad. Perhaps we just miss out on a few experiences in life. Perhaps we don't have certain learning opportunities. But perhaps the consequences will be more substantial. We read in our passage this morning of one who was frozen in inaction by his fear, and that results in his being cast out into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Such imagery offers us a sense of the disconnectedness from others and the sadness that can result in our inability or unwillingness to engage or to act. Jesus tells this parable of the talents to remind us that we are people gifted by God with talents. The message of this passage is not dissimilar from other teachings of Jesus where he encourages us not to hide our light under a bushel basket. Some of you may be hearing music from Godspell right now. And it is a message that echoes in some of Paul's writings as well. This is a core teaching of Jesus as he seeks to remind us that as people of God, we have value and we have something worth sharing. And we are called to share our talents, to shine our light, not just for our own sake, but for the sake of others as well. Author Marianne Williamson captures this idea in her now famous quote: "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel so insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. My friends, we should embrace this sentiment. Then when we hold back from sharing, we will know that we have given in to our fears and we shouldn't, for we're only doing a disservice to ourselves and to others. This idea of consequences is central in our passage from Matthew this morning, as he takes this idea of putting our talents to good use to a whole new level. While in the passage we hear briefly of the praise received by the first two servants for the shrewd investment strategies, no doubt an affirmation of our bold use of our own talents in life, the final portion of the passage, along with the parable's punchline, seem to bring a greater focus in on that unfortunate third servant. Now, perhaps you're like me, conditioned by a culture that can encourage caution, and you feel that this third servant who simply buries the talent he is given to ensure that it is not lost, you feel that he is punished too severely. After all, he took this tactful approach out of fear of his employer's temper. How did he say it? Master, I know that you are a harsh man. So given the response from the master, this third servant is proven quite right, and his fears are validated. And yet, clearly this is not the message that Jesus, nor the author of Matthew's gospel, wants us to come away with from this lesson. Instead, we are invited to see how should we receive a gift freely given. We should not hide it or waste it. For my friends, the gifts we receive from God are not intended to be wasted or hoarded, but shared for our own good and for the good of others. In the context of this parable, the sharing of such gifts is really an investment, and the dividends go well beyond what we might expect, for they represent our becoming a culture of generosity, which builds on itself and finds its origin in God's graciousness. And the gifts that are not shared, perhaps we might think of those as lost potential. It occurs to me that this is starting to sound like a stewardship sermon. How many of you know the song Magic Penny? It's a song we used to sing in church when I was growing up. It speaks of sharing love, but contained within its lyrics is an echo of this parable, I think. So I think that the sentiment is apropos here as well. The first verse goes something like this, and if you do know it, please join in. I don't need to solo more than once. It's just like a magic penny. Hold it tight and you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many. They'll roll all over the floor. And then it goes into its chorus. Hold it tight and you won't have any. As for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. On the outside, always looking in. Will I ever be more than I've always been? Because I'm tapping on the glass, waving through a window. I don't know about you, but this place of non-engagement doesn't seem like the place we want to be. God creates us to be relational beings, gifted and valuable. It seems such a waste to keep that hidden. Besides, we know well that the world in which we live can only benefit from our full participation. So why would we hide our talents or hold back? Perhaps it's fear. The fear of putting ourselves out there. The fear of failure. The fear of rejection. Perhaps it is shame. Far too often we allow ourselves to be shamed by others, or even more troubling, to allow our own insecurities to cause us to essentially shame ourselves. Yet, my friends, fear of failure, fear of rejection, they have no place in God's world. They have no place in the community we seek to embody, a community of support and encouragement, a community grounded in God's love. And shame, well, if we are truly believing that we are each created in the divine image of God, then what do we have to be ashamed about? As Ms. Williamson so beautifully said, we were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. I said earlier that this might sound like a stewardship sermon. If you know me, you know that I am not one to miss the opportunity to encourage everyone to get your pledges in. So I guess we could embrace a more literal reading of Jesus' message and take the cue to diversify our portfolios, to include more risky investments rather than putting all of our money in a non-interest-bearing savings account or alternatively stuffing it into our mattresses. We might even suggest that giving to the church is such a worthy investment. But I feel like that is not fully capturing the point. Instead, this is about risking ourselves and putting ourselves out there, seeking to embody the full potential of what God intends for us. Otherwise, we are essentially casting ourselves out into the darkness as we diminish and extinguish our own light. In the show, Dear Evan Hansen, our lead character, Evan, does not end up in the place where he starts, simply staring at life, waving through a window. Instead, he overcomes his anxiety and conquers his fears and puts himself out there. And what he finds is a community of people not only willing to hear what he has to say, but ready to embrace him and eager to affirm, even celebrate, the true value of what he has to share. In the end, the broader community benefits from his engagement. God has given each one of us something special, something wonderful, something we are meant not to hide or to hoard or to waste, but something that is to be shared. And it is in the risky act of sharing our gifts that we receive from God where we will find their full and ultimate value. Amen.